Oh, look at that. We're on YouTube today. I feel like The Jerk. Did you ever see the movie The Jerk, where Steve Martin saw his name in the phone book, and he said, "Look, I'm famous. I'm on YouTube." Hey, YouTube's working, so you can see the wide angle, and you can see the tight angle. Now, the cool thing about the tight angle, the cool thing about Periscope, as you know, is I can see your comments. Like Jody, I found my special purpose. Jody just throws that out there. Jody, I think you need help. Is what I think you need. I think you need a little help. Look at the book over my shoulder. That's the law. That is the book, right? I should give one away today, huh? All right, show of hands. Who wants books given away today? The Constitution and the law. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give away books today. I don't know how. I don't know exactly what I'm going to say yet or what questions I'm going to ask yet. Do you know, I've been working all day, by the way. Are you impressed? You know what Ronald Reagan said? He said, I know that hard work never killed anybody, but I figure why take a chance? You know, that kind of thing. All right, we're going to give away Pocket Constitution today, and we're going to give away a copy of The Law. The Law by Frederick Bastiat. The Law by Frederick Bastiat, which you know is the first book I would put on anybody's Liberty Library. I think you've got to really understand the concepts that Frederick Bastiat offers in the law. Have you read it? And if you haven't read it, you know my thing. I used to push people to read things. You got to read this. You got to read that. And I notice people don't do it. So now I often say, don't do it. I say don't do it because you're more likely to do it. Like my kids, right? Ladies, don't go out in that area. Turn around. When I say ladies, I'm talking about my little girls, by the way. Oh, boy. I've got a few questions for you today. I was thinking about some things as I was driving into work. And one of them, actually, I wrote it down as I was driving. Is that still legal? Can you still write and drive? Because I don't know, you can't text and drive, right? Not in Florida. They'll pull you over for that now. But but I can write, right? I can write and drive. I can even tweet and drive. And by the way, since I'm all about the thug life, since they want to make a thug out of me, I will text and drive in a minute. You may hear one day that I'm not on the show because I was busted for texting and driving. And to that I say, I'm going to live with that. I'm going to take it as a badge of honor. You know, I might get tie a bandana around my head, you know, just right there, live the thug life. I may even get a tattoo. I may get a tattoo that really shows how on the edge I am. I may get a tattoo that says thug life on it. Maybe. What do you think? What do you mean, no? Listen, I got to be cool while I still have time. All right, listen, I have a couple of questions. And I'm trying to remember what made me think of this. It might be some of the protests that are going on in America. If you call them protests, they're more like riots, you know. And I think about what's going on with these parades. And in New York, do you know in New York people walk around naked now? It's self-expression in New York. And it used to be, you know, there were gay pride parades and people said, you know, that's not really something we want out in public. And everybody said, what are you, racist? What do you hate gays? Right? You don't want men in thongs, you know, slapping each other, a little slap and tickle on the streets. What's wrong with you? And at some point, enough people scream, what's wrong with you? That we start to ask ourselves, damn, am I that out of touch? By the way, do you know that Barack Obama is now saying that the GOP is out of touch when it comes to energy? This is the same cat who said that under his plan, electricity prices would necessarily skyrocket, but the GOP is out of touch. Now, let me tell you about the GOP. The GOP is going to hear that, and they're going to panic. And they're going to say, what do you want us to do, B? What do you want us to do? You watch. The GOP is so damn scared of Barack Obama and Ashley Madison. I think they are. Do you think that I'm not going to be thrown off? Do you think that the GOP is out of touch, or do you think the GOP is just going to roll over for Barack Obama. Whatever he wants. You know, whatever he wants. Talking about solar panels again. Do you know that's what Solyndra was? Solyndra was a solar panel company that took boatloads of money from us. What is all this noise? Jeremy, I'm hearing lots of noise, by the way. It's coming from the house. What was that movie? Do you hear the noise? I hear the noise. I don't know how to stop the noise. I really don't know how to stop the noise. I stopped it. I just, live. The thing about live radio is you've got to just be able to roll with it. You do. You got to be able to roll with it and not let S. Hannity's hair distract you. These are the two things about live radio that are most important. It's not really doesn't matter how much you know about liberty. It doesn't really matter. It matters that you don't let S. Hannity's hair distract you or noises that just come from nowhere. But I began thinking about America. First of all, when it comes to the GOP being out of touch, Obama can say that, and the GOP will do any old thing. Any old thing Obama wants them to do because they're scared to death. They are either, what is it again? Who remembers? That's right. That's exactly right. They're either on the take or they're compromised by NSA. So now you watch. Now we're going to have Jeb Bush and others talking about, well, we should probably do an all of the above approach, right? We need to have some solar panels. We need to have some windmills. We need to have some dancing around a campfire. We need to really tap into our energy sources. Dance around a campfire, windmills, solar panels. But maximizing and exploiting the oil in America, the shale, well, we don't want to pollute the planet. We don't want it to boil over, right? So let's do some dancing around a campfire. I swear to God, I could see John Boehner and Mitch McConnell, who still has only blinked one time since taking office, Mitch McConnell. I know this because Hare sent me a picture of him blinking, although I did not see a timestamp on that. So there is some doubt. It's just that I trust you. I'm going to tell you something about the GOP, and I'm going to tell you, I've got a question, and it's an honest question. I know where I stand on it, okay? But I want to get your take on this. There's a local representative where I live. He's a young guy. He's 33. That's young to me. That's very young to me. God, can you believe that? I never thought that 33 would be young to me, but 33 is young to me. 33 is just right in some ways, but in other ways it's young to me. And this guy's 33, and he's actually been serving in the state legislature for going on 8 years. I think he's 33, isn't he? Matt Gaetz. Well, his dad is leaving the state Senate, and he wants that seat, and he's got already raised about $500,000 for that seat. And he's known for being a pretty conservative representative. I think he's particularly talented. He has the instincts for conservatism, and he's incredibly articulate. Matt Gaetz, Gaetz. But the problem with Matt Gaetz is he does what his daddy tells him, and he's a bit of a crony. Those are two big issues. Now, he's sort of like Alice in Wonderland at the crossroads, right? Alice in Wonderland at the crossroads. Alice, do you remember when she was there and she saw the Cheshire Cat, smiling Cheshire Cat, and she said, "Which way shall I go?" Just like that, I think. "Which way shall I go?" And the Cheshire Cat said, "Well, that depends where you're headed." And she said, "Well, I'm not really sure, so long as I get somewhere." And the Cheshire Cat said, "Then it doesn't matter which way you go because you're bound to end up somewhere, right?" I'm suggesting that we should know where we want to go, right? And you know the way I live my life. One of my overriding principles of my life is that I believe one day my Creator will ask me if I found the gift that He gave me. And I get to say, I did. I'm one of the very fortunate people who found the gift that you gave me. But the second question will be the harder question. And the second question is, what did you do with it? What did you do with the gift that God gave you? What are you doing with the gift that God gave you? I ask all the time, why did God make you you? Why? And what are you doing with that special gift that you have because you have one? We all do something great. Some people do more than something great. But what are you doing with it? Are you simply enriching yourself at others' expense? Or are you trying to make a difference for the good? Are you doing all you can to pass the blessings of prosperity, the blessings of liberty to our posterity? What are you doing with it? And too many times, we see, and it's heartbreaking, isn't it? We see people use their gift to enrich themselves at others' expense. And right now it's taking the form of cronyism. And cronyism, again, the definition of cronyism is when big government and big business climb into bed together and spawn bastard lobbyists at our expense. That is, I think, the official definition of cronyism. And cronyism is the bubonic plague of economics today. It is the modern version of the bubonic plague of economics. It's infectious and it's deadly, and it infects Republicans and Democrats alike, and it is killing America. It is sucking, literally, the lifeblood out of you and me. That is to say, the economy. The economy. Every time I hear Barack Obama talk about the economy, and I see people cheering and the seals clapping and the nincompoop bobbleheads nodding, I'm nauseated. Not nauseous. No, not nauseous. I'm nauseated. Do you know the difference, by the way? Oh, this makes people just so happy when you point it out. I don't point it out very often anymore. I don't point it out any less either. That's the problem. What's the difference? Do you know? Oh, my stomach is gurgling. I feel what? What's the right word? Who knows? I feel queasy. I am. What's the word? And if you're watching on YouTube, I'm talking to the Periscope crowd. So if you haven't yet downloaded that free app and followed at Burnie Thompson, you're missing out, because if you're on Periscope, I'm looking right at you. I see you. If you're brand new, I really don't see you. I had one guy ask me, what is it, like FaceTime? Can you see me too? No, I can't see, but you can see me. I got to keep that in mind. You can see me. What is it? If your stomach is queasy and you feel like you've got to, Ralph, right? What is the word? Is it nauseous or nauseated? Who knows? I feel like I'm teaching English again. I used to teach English for 3 years, and I loved it. I really loved teaching in the classroom a lot. That's it. Kyle got it. No, it's nauseated, because if you're nauseous, if I'm nauseous, I'm making everybody else want to throw up. I'm like a smell, right, that makes you want to throw up. If I'm nauseous, I'm making everybody else want to throw up. If I'm nauseated, I want to throw up. It's just one of those little fine distinctions that will run everybody right off Periscope and right off YouTube. We were looking for some serious hardcore politics here, Thompson. What's going on? So here's a real question for you. Matt Gaetz, the representative out of Pensacola area, not quite that far, but kind of in between Panama City and Pensacola, he's running for the state Senate seat. But here's my question. Can you be, at the same time, simultaneously, a strong conservative and at the same time endorse Jeb Bush? Because he is saying that I don't agree with Jeb 100% of the time. And I'm saying nobody ever said you are, that we need you to agree 100% of the time. You threw that in there. Thank you. Elisha Cruz at Redscope TV1 says no. Joe Snuffy says no. And I agree. I'm with you. I do not believe that just because you vote or you pass and push and pass a bill that allows you to opt out of Common Core, if you, I mean, it's like zeroing yourself out, isn't it? If you did all you could do to pass a bill that allows counties to opt out of Common Core, yet you endorse Jeb Bush for president, you have just zeroed yourself out. Am I right or wrong? I mean, if Jeb Bush is not the ultimate insider, if he's not the ultimate rhino, you tell me who is more of one. John McCain's up there. John Boehner, Mitch McConnell's up there. Yeah, Nancy Pelosi. She's insiders. They're insider story. A prescient story, too, I'm afraid. Not only is it prescient, but I think it predicts the future. There's a word for it. There's our word, Elisha. Ago that I'm having trouble finding it. Here it is. I'm looking at some of the things that I wanted to. The question remains too, by the way, and we had 2 no's, but I bet you we have some yeses. Can you be a conservative while endorsing Jeb Bush? Can you? To me, it seems a lot like Obama saying that he loves America, but he wants to transform it. How do you love something that you want to transform? Somebody explain this to me. I really, really love you, sweetheart, but I really need you to change, right? I mean, I love you to death, but if you don't get some amendments, if you know what I mean, if you don't get, you've got arthritis is what the hands are. I really love you, sweetheart, but we need to transform you. I'm going to suggest you really don't love her. And for Obama to say that he loves America, but he wants to fundamentally transform it, you don't love America. You resent America. You know it, I know it, and everybody within earshot knows it, but we all pretend. We all play this gigantic game of let's pretend. And I don't enjoy it at all. I don't play that game of let's pretend. But with regard to ISIS, I think that, first of all, there was there was something said yesterday that I thought was just profound. America is full of left, and this is something that really only the left, I wonder if it's true. I'm not sure if it's true now that I think about it. I think many on the right do it as well. Let me make a point here. So right now we live in Omerica, right? It's no longer America. You tell me when you disagree with this analysis. We live in Omerica today. Omerica. It's not America. It's not Merca. I don't like that either. I want America. I don't want Merca. Okay? I don't want Omerica. I want the United States of America again. And there's a difference. Okay? In Merca, Bush was still bailing out Wall Street. I don't think I'm on a break on YouTube. Does it look like I'm on a break on YouTube? No, you should be able to see the show on YouTube, I believe. I hope you can at My Freedom Radio. But, okay, good. You can see it. But the left likes to do away with things like the Confederate flag. That represents racism. We have to delete our history, right? Throw it down the memory hole, knock over the statues, take the flags down, destroy the flags. That's very much like what ISIS does. ISIS does that they just did it with a Roman, what was it? A temple, with a Roman temple. They just did that. They just destroyed it. Remember, they cut off the archaeologists, said destroyed the temple. That's what the left does. Get Dukes of Hazzard off TV. We've detected racism, and we've got to eradicate it, not only today, but as though it never happened. You know, I got to tell you, I don't make these analogies often, but you need to know that. You need to understand this. Do you know what the Nazis used to do? Hitler hated smoking, so he would airbrush cigarettes out of pictures. The left. Do you know what the left does with FDR's images, his statues and stuff, and images of him? They'll make statues where they put him in his wheelchair, but they don't give him his iconic cigarette and cigarette holder. Remember how he used to like that? He used to like that cigarette holder. The left will erase it as though it never happened. ISIS does that, and the left does that. American Democrats airbrush history away. Michelle Obama said so. We've got to change our history. We've got to change our conversation. And we've got to change our what? History, conversation, and traditions. And they are. Now, that's what the left has in common with ISIS, and that's what the left has in common with the Nazis. I know it sounds rough, but just bear with me on this. On the other hand, the right, they would hate when they read a book, and if there was something maybe in a book that they didn't like, you know, now that I'm thinking this through some more, it really is the left more than the right again on this. Let's take Huck Finn, for example, or any book where, or Song of the South, the TV show, the movie Song of the South. Amos and Andy. By the way, Amos and Andy was a wonderful show, a wonderful TV show. Did it play on racial stereotypes? Yes, but that's not racism. Playing on racial stereotypes is not racism. It has a racial element to it, but it's not. If you don't take into account what that meant at that time, then you're not taking context into account. Let's define racism again, can we? If you go to college, they'll tell you that it is discrimination plus political power. Therefore, black Americans it's impossible for them to be racist. Now, you and I know that's untrue. Racism is a belief. It's a belief system that one person is inherently superior to another person based on skin color. That's racism. That you matter more, that God loves you more, that you should live and somebody else doesn't matter, that you should be free and they not so much because they're inherently inferior. That's racism. But a comedy emphasizing racial stereotypes, emphasizing that white people aren't the best dancers, or that Asians aren't the best drivers, that's not racism. Do you think it is? And if we don't get back to this, things are going to continue to get worse, in my opinion. I'm going to take a quick break. And when we come back, I have so much more to talk to you about. I want to talk with you about several issues, including energy. Obama is talking about energy. Hillary Clinton, more about Hillary Clinton. And common courtesy. I've been thinking about common courtesy, consideration, decorum, and how it's been lost in America. It has become very, very popular and cool in America to be as rude as possible. It's become sort of a badge of honor to out-rude somebody else and to get on the internet with a viral video of yourself acting like an absolute animal, as a matter of fact. And what has happened to common courtesy and decorum and consideration in America today? And why has it gone away? I've got some thoughts on that I'd like to share with you, and I'd also love to hear what you think as well. All that and more in just a moment on myfreedomradio.com, also on YouTube and on Periscope as well. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back in just a moment.
You're listening to the Burnie Thompson Show. Stay tuned. More of you and Burnie straight ahead.
The Burnie Thompson Show is brought to you by Superior Door Works and more. For garage door problems or to build a new one, don't get stuck with a broken garage door. Call my friend Kyle.
The market's taking another hit today. Do you think they're going to keep taking a hit, by the way? Who among us thinks that the stock market accurately represents the value of the companies? Who believes that? I don't see a whole lot of hands going up. I mean, I just don't see a whole lot of hands going up. Do you want to know when you know that you live in the era of non sequiturs and when you live among some of the most dishonest when you live among some of the most dishonest people ever, is when you see Democrats pointing to the stock market as their proof that the economy is rolling along. That's when you know that you're living in a time that's not very honest. Democrats would always point to minority unemployment. Democrats would point to things like that, you know, how affordable things were. Now Democrats point to Wall Street and say, look, the economy is doing great. The stock market has doubled under my leadership. That's amazing. Is that not amazing? That Democrats point to the stock. When have you ever, let me ask you this, let me put it this way. When have you ever seen Democrats point to the stock market and say, look, here's a healthy economy? Did Jimmy Carter do it? Who did it? When that's their main thing. Not that 93 million Americans are out of work. Not that 50 million people are on smack. Some people call it SNAP, others call it food stamps. I call it smack because that's how addictive it is. And that's how destructive it is to the human spirit. I call it smack. Let's call things what they are, damn it. It's about time in America. Or that, how many million people are in poverty? 46 million, something like that. I tell you what, you know who I get to visit again today? I get to visit again later today that general from the communist country that I told you about. He's still here. I'll be visiting a general from a communist country, and I'll hear more and more stories about how, just today I'm going to do this, about how America is on the same trajectory. He says America is on the same trajectory to totalitarian communism as his country. He said 15, 16 years ago, nobody believed that his country would have a shortage of medicine, a shortage of car batteries, a shortage of everything. The first thing he said that his country did was they took control of the money supply. The next thing his country did was they took control of the industries. And then before you know it, the people were in a vice grip. And they were happy to get their... This is an amazing story. You ready for this? I said it last time I talked to you, but this one is worth repeating. He said that when the dictators took power, they promised everybody that they would get $1. For $1, they would get car batteries. And everybody said, oh my, it's like free car batteries, right? A car battery in every pot, right? A car battery in every pot. This is amazing. We want you guys to run the government, you know? Car batteries for $1? I never thought this day would come. Well, I don't have to worry about paying for a car battery. Putting a car battery in my car. If I take care of him, he gonna take care of me. See, I've been working on impersonations. And how many people did we lose? It's the same kind of damn thing. People think, oh man, he's going to give us free stuff. But guess what happened? Once they came into power, they said, well, you know, what we said was, you're going to get $1 car batteries, but there are only 100 of them. And then after the 100 were gone, car batteries cost about $1,000. And there's a long wait. Because what's the first thing that happens in these situations? Shortages. The second thing that happens? Black markets. And then you have crime. And then the government becomes the criminal, the main criminal. This is what happens. And this general told me, Bernie, your country is not the same country it was the last time I was here. This is not the same country. I tell you that there might be remnants of America. There might be remnants, but the fundamental transformation is well underway. You say, but what does that mean? Somebody asked me that the other day. And it turns out this guy who asked the question was just being a smart ass. Whatever that means, fundamental. You know what it means? Fundamental transformation means, oh, I don't know, big freaking changes, okay? Kind of like the rule of law is supplanted by the law of rulers, that kind of thing. That's what it means. I don't like people who play games while the country's going down in flames. People like to play games at times like this. And these are the people we're going to have to protect because they're too damn stupid to take care of themselves. Am I right or wrong? Do you know who's going to join us in about 20 minutes? And S. Hannity's hair is going to love it. Anybody have a clue? S. Hannity's hair is going to be beside himself when he finds out who our guest is going to be at the top of the hour. Any guesses who the guest is going to be at the top of the hour? Because S. Hannity's hair is going to be so excited. Nope. Nope. His new fascination. Christy Brown's going to be with us at the top of the hour, and I can't wait to get her analysis. She is one of the most original thinkers on all of these issues. And what I really respect about her is her analysis of things, her original analysis of things, and how she does not get swept away without thinking things through the way so many others want to. She's one of the most consistent constitutional champions that I know. I'm going to tell you who the most consistent champions of the Constitution are that I know. It's based not only on their knowledge, it's based on their consistency, it's based on their conviction, it's based on their fire in the belly, and it's based on what they're willing to give up to support and defend the Constitution of the United States, the supreme law of the land. Chris Ann Hall. And this is not necessarily, if I had to put it in a 1, 2, 3 order, I don't think anybody's going to bump Chris Ann Hall. Chris Ann Hall is up there. Her husband, J.C. Hall, is up there. Christy Brown is right there. I mean, these are people that are right there. They understand the Constitution. I know a lot of conservatives, right? And they have great instincts. And they love America. If this is a list of who loves America and who wants what works, there would be others in the top 3 too. Bernie, you can't have more in the top 3 too. But I'm telling you, when it comes to understanding and defending and supporting limited government, it doesn't get any better than Christy Brown, J.C. Hall, and number 1, Chris Ann Hall. Because you know what? When any of us have a question, we go to her. And that's the truth. Did you know that? If I have a question about the Constitution, I go to Chris Ann Hall. So if you're not following her on Twitter, it's at Chris Ann, K-R-I-S, Chris, K-R-I-S, one word, A-N-N-E, Chris Ann Hall. And I hope that you'll follow her as well. But I wanted to run a few things by you. Do you notice that in America today, some of the, if you were to look at America today in America, I don't know, even in the 90s or the 80s, especially in the early 60s, but I guess it all really changed in the late 60s, didn't it? And but it keeps getting worse, it seems to me, is common decency, a consideration that there are other people around, not just us. The idea of expressing yourself, self-expression being paramount, self-expression being everything, right? Do you know what I wish? I wish that instead of self-expression, that we focused more in America on self-restraint. I don't think we have a problem with self-expression in America, especially if it's PC. We have a lot of that, right? We have gay pride parades, but what we have very little of, by the way, is self-expression that is traditionally American. You don't have much Merry Christmas self-expression. You don't have very much of that. You have a lot of anti-establishment, which I'm cool with that. But you also have a lot of anti-police, anti-Republican, anti-white, anti-Israel. That is the self-expression that is celebrated most in America today. Do you agree with me? Who agrees with that? That most of the self-expression that we see today in America is anti-Republican, anti-white, anti-business, and I mean real business, anti-Israel, and pro. I got to tell you something. I really believe this, that this is going to be the biggest statement I make today, but I'm going to make it because I really believe this now, and I want to know if you agree or not. I think that it has become politically correct to defecate on an American flag and to ignore the evil of ISIS. But if you catch a glimpse of something you can contort into evil, like, oh, I don't know, hunting a lion, hanging a rebel flag, those are things that are not tolerated in America. You must ban anything that ever had anything to do with those things. But ISIS, we had Hillary Clinton herself say that we should understand their motives. You should understand the motives of these people. You talk about only a Democrat today. I used to say a leftist, but really it's any Democrat. Find one. Find a Democrat who will criticize their fellow Democrats. It's very rare anymore. Democrats used to be Americans. I used to think of them as that. Tip O'Neill, JFK. Democrats today, I think that they think ISIS should be understood. I truly believe that Democrats today live in a world of cognitive dissonance that is so profound that they will defend and excuse ISIS and spend their days criticizing and defaming any Republican, because Republicans are not American to them. They want to do to Republicans what the Palestinians want to do to Israel. They want them gone. The left, I think Democrats want one party today. And this is something that I think Democrats and Republicans have in common with the book 1984, is party loyalty comes before country. Party loyalty comes before the people. Party loyalty comes before anything. Do you agree with that? Here's the phone number. I want to hear from you. Phone number is 850-252-8260. Is that over the top or no? I mean, this is brand new stuff. And this goes back to what I say about Obama and Obama's ability to take what used to be bizarre and make it routine. He has now made, I would say in Democrats' mind, they are less angry with ISIS than they are Republicans. That's America. In America, we're more angry with Islamic jihadists who want to kill Americans, Republican or Democrat, but not anymore. As a matter of fact, I argue that today, if it's a Republican president, and he only represents Republicans in the minds of many people in America. If it's a Democrat president, well, then he only rewards his friends and punishes his enemies. It is not a president of everybody anymore. It's a very different time in America, and a very scary time. And I got to tell you even more, a very sad time in America. Is it to you? It is to me. It really is to me. We live in an America today where we don't respect our elders. And where does it come from? I put it mostly in one place. Mostly in one place, fatherlessness. Government incentives, fatherlessness, and the degradation of pop culture. Those, to me, are the greatest problems in America. They're the greatest social ills because they feed all the rest. What I just named to you feeds all of the other problems in America. How do we fix it? I don't know. But I tell you this, I don't think it's going to be fixed from the outside. I don't think somebody's going to come in and fix it. I think it's going to be it has to be fixed from the inside. It has to be fixed by reigniting that little flame inside everybody, that yearning to be free and dignified, rather than taken care of. And I don't use the word enslaved. I have to come up with another word that's a similar word, but another word just the same. I don't know. I don't know. I think I'm better at seeing the problem than I am offering a solution. That'd be the best criticism I have of myself. You say, Bernie, I got more criticisms than that. Okay, goodness. But I think that is my biggest criticism of myself. I'm pretty good at identifying the problem. The solutions, on the other hand, not sure. Oftentimes, I do a good enough job at presenting those. People say, that's why you're all hot air, Bernie. That's why your show doesn't matter. Hey, are you ready for the TV show, by the way? I'm not. Woo! I've been working today on it about how to get it up and going for you. But the TV show is going to be on in 8 counties if you're in this area on Fox 28 WPGX from 6:30 to 7 in the morning. You're going to be up at 6:30 to 7 in the morning. Now you'll have Daryl Day and me, right? Daryl Day's on Talk Radio 101. I used to have that early morning time slot from 6 to 9. Whew, glad I don't anymore. That will wear me out. I really will. He's a morning guy. I'm a morning guy too, a 2 o'clock in the morning guy. That's what kind of morning guy I really am. We'll be right back in about 5 minutes with Christy Brown, one of the great constitutional champions in America. We're going to go over some of the Donald Trump. I want to get her thoughts on Donald Trump. You might be surprised. Will you help me make sure that Elisha Cruz at S. Hannity's Hair and a few others are back with us in 5 minutes, because it's going to be a discussion they're going to want to hear. Elisha Cruz is sort of thumbs up on Donald Trump and big thumbs up on Ted Cruz. S. Hannity's Hair, hell, he's just big thumbs up on Christy Brown, I think is what that is. We'll be right back in just a minute on myfreedomradio.com, on YouTube on My Freedom Radio, and of course on Periscope.
The Bernie Thompson Show. Stay tuned. More of you and Bernie straight ahead.
The Bernie Thompson Show is brought to you by Forest Park Animal Hospital. He's more than just a vet for your pet. He's your dog's best friend. Dr. Steven Favillaro on Facebook at Forest Park Animal Hospital, PA.
Sorry about that. The microphone wasn't on. We're going to have Christy Brown on with us in a little bit. And we're going to go over a bunch of the main stories. Looks like a day is one of the headlines. Stocks rally after worst recovery. Do you not feel suspects or just all seems the way I'm being told in Hillary Clinton? Jimmy Carter. Okay. When Jimmy Carter ran, he was considered, really smart, really folksy, really likable. Gerald Ford wasn't particularly, all that exciting. And so Jimmy Carter kind of was when he first ran. And then after his bumbling of the presidency, you had, let's fast forward to the next Democrat president. You had Bill Clinton, and Bill Clinton excited Democrats. And Bill Clinton was kind of a new kind of Democrat, actually, right? I didn't like him then. I don't like him now. But I can say that compared to what George W. Bush and Barack Obama, I long for the days of Bill Clinton. And I can't believe I'm saying that, especially with what he did with his Justice Department, using it like an iron fist on Microsoft and on Americans. After Y2K, things have been painful. Are people who order, extra supplies of food and bug out bags and survival equipment and this kind of thing. Are you guys preppers? Who's a prep? Do we have any preppers in the crowd? Who's going to admit to being a prepper, right? Do you have your extra supplies, right? And maybe extra bullets, Band-Aids, and beans, right? Right? Extra stuff like that. Well, according to this newspaper out of the UK, the Mirror, if the internet goes down, half the planet will come to a standstill. Wow, really? We've got some preppers on the show now, and booze. Bus radio. That's the one thing I'll tell you what. If the fit hits the shan, is what I'm trying to America. There's one thing I need to stock up on more, and I'm glad you brought that up. I need to have plenty of vitamin C at my disposal, is what I need. But lots of B's, right? Band-Aids, bullets, beans, and booze, and broads. You've got to keep. And look, in a fit hits the shan situation, not seeing the end of. About at the end of Dr. Strangelove. Was that not bizarre? Do you know at the very end of that movie, Dr. Strangelove, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb? That water too, you need to be clean, especially if we get the last B. At the end of that movie with Peter Sellers, who remembers the end of the movie? Do you know that he improvised that whole last great scene with the black glove and the Mein Fuhrer and all that stuff? He improvised that. Peter Sellers was so funny and so brilliant. Did you like him? Who liked Peter Sellers? I love Peter Sellers. I think he's hilarious in most everything he does, especially when he was on the Dean Martin variety shows. I really liked him. I really liked him then in the barber shop scene, too, with Nipsey Russell. I know. See, I wish we could talk about this kind of stuff instead of the spiraling of America. So we've got a bunch of preppers, it turns out. I don't need to explain what preppers are. Look at that. If the internet goes down, half the planet will come to a standstill, says the newspaper. Why preppers will be the last ones standing. Let's read this together. As we rely more and more on technology, Mirror Online meets a survival expert who tells it like it is, he says. These days, the world is a scary place to live in. If there's not an asteroid on its way to obliterate us or terrorists plotting our imminent downfall, there's the dangers of giant online data hacks or complete economic collapse. But when the end does arrive, There are a few people who aren't just able to cope with the apocalypse, they've been actively preparing for it. These people call themselves preppers or survivalists, and they belong to a vast underground community. When the ATMs stop running or the internet goes down, they'll be the ones that make it out alive, says the newspaper. It's a huge community. It's a huge community, especially in the States. But in the UK, it's becoming more and more recognized, explains Steve Hart, the man behind the UK's top prepping website, ukpreppersguide.co.uk. Prepping itself, he says, is just another form of insurance. Would you agree with that? People have life, car, or pet insurance for the what ifs. It's just this is just looking at what if from a slightly different perspective. What if a serious earthquake hits, or a tsunami, or a volcano, or even bioterrorism? Where I live, it could be a hurricane, right? Or it could be the county commission gets together again. I mean, it could be a few things, right? The county commission could get together again, and then all hell could break loose at any point in time. Is the danger we live with in Panama City Beach? Am I right? Admittedly, those situations are unlikely, it says here. But 59-year-old Steve sets us straight pretty quickly. What if the government starts acting up? That's the number one fear among preppers, economic collapse. Is that your number one fear? What's your number one fear? Economic collapse, terrorism, or government just rounding people up? Because you haven't quite changed the way you think about gun violence. You haven't quite changed quite as quickly as we'd like you to about the way you feel about gay marriage. You haven't changed the way you feel about smoking pot. You haven't changed the way you think about, there's a lot of things that Obama says you need to change the way you think about. And pretty soon, if they have their way, including Republicans, by the way, economic and all the above, says Marion. Listen, if you haven't changed the way you think about what the government says, you need to change the way you think about. I'm just suggesting that I'm no longer more afraid. God, this is unbelievable. I grew up afraid of the Soviet Union. I grew up in the 80s. And then I went for a while not worrying about things like that. And then you worry a little bit about terrorism sometimes. But without a doubt, what I worry about most is my own government. If I get a letter in the mail that says IRS, I have to take a deep breath. If I drive by police anymore, I don't trust them. I just don't. Not after seeing and hearing too many stories about the shakedowns for texting and driving, or the obsession with pulling over as many people as possible and trying to catch somebody who's had a beer for lunch and pop them with a DUI, or the asset civil forfeitures and surveillance. And seizures, by the way. It's just amazing. What I'm afraid of now is my local, state, and federal government more than, especially the federal government. I'm scared to death of them. And do you know what Thomas Jefferson said about that? A people afraid of their own government live in tyranny. A people whose government is afraid of them live in freedom. I'm getting messages. I want to check them if you don't mind. We'll check them together. My phone is acting up. Do you ever feel like you're being watched? That's part of what totalitarianism is, by the way. I'm waiting for Christy Brown to join us, and I think that she will be during this hour at some point. I thought she'd be with us earlier, but maybe a little bit later. Do you agree with this thing about the preppers, though? Do you agree with... There's actually a little 47 second video. I'm curious what it is. Let's see here. Maybe I'll show you. Maybe I'll flip this thing around here and show you. All right, I will. Let's just see what. Let's just for kicks and giggles. Let's see what this is about. All right, I'm gonna flip this around. Look at this.
There are hackers who are cyber criminals.
All in Power, membri ai familjei Bush, Rockefeller.
All right, here we go.
There's all kinds of dangers.
Earthquake, catastrophic collapse, supervolcano,
Total destruction,
EMP,
terrorist
The
attacks.
end of the world as we know it.
That's great. It starts with an
Let's go.
This is your emergency preparedness toy store right here.
If the world comes to an end, I'll be eating some good stuff.
The extent that my wife and I go to is probably, let's say, insane.
Commit fire.
That's survival, folks.
Here's to the end of the world.
I just want to be ready.
It would be like somebody instantly flipped the switch on the world.
White people are crazy. Do you notice that? How come it seems like the vast majority of preppers are white? Do you notice that? White people are crazy. This is what some of my friends tell me when it comes to things like that. But newspaper says that, and the majority of you, it looks like, agrees, and it looks like we've got some preppers among us. Do you think that the federal government finds preppers to be friendly? Or do you think the federal government, if you're a prepper, do you think that the federal government worries about you more than they do ISIS? This is what I mean when I say that ISIS has sort of become politically correct. ISIS, look, the federal government will protect the new Black Panthers. The federal government, it seems to me, is not really out to get ISIS. As a matter of fact, I do not agree that that our federal government created ISIS, but I do agree that our federal government, especially under Barack Obama, is sort of giving them a lift, is blowing life into them. Would you agree with that? And I've gone into this with you before. Maybe I should again. I'm going to tell you something that's important to know. What do you think would be the best way to deal with ISIS? Or Obama's ISILs, so whatever. See, he calls them his ISILs, so I don't have a problem. If you want to say these are Obama's ISILs, I have no problem with that because that's what he calls them. Why does he's the only guy I know who calls them ISIL. But anyway, what would you do if you were the king, right? If you were the president of the United States of America, what would you do with regard to ISIS? Because I'll tell you what I would do. And on this, I do wish that I were the president. I really do. First of all, let's recognize what ISIS is. They're a spinoff of Al-Qaeda. Their goals are slightly different. They have more ambitious goals. They want to be the big dog, right? I think that's it. No, it's the caliphate. Sorry, the caliphate of the Middle East. Same thing, though. Same thing. They want to be the big dog of the Middle East. And that means that they've got some hurdles, right? They've got some blockages to being the caliphate of the Middle East. Like what? Like Syria, like Egypt, like Saudi Arabia, like Iran, like Jordan. There are nation states that stand in the way of their goals, and they speak the same language, right? They speak the same language. Ah, interesting, Marion. Very interesting. I want you to understand, though, that their goal is to become the caliphate. That means their goal would be to destroy and overtake not only Syria, but all of those nation states I just named. Now, those nation states know that, and those nation states would absolutely decimate ISIS. But for one thing, we're in the way. We are like a buffer. We are running interference for ISIS all over the Middle East so that those countries don't come in and destroy them. We are not there to destroy ISIS. We are there to run interference for ISIS. If we were to pull back and allow those countries to destroy ISIS, there would be no ISIS. But for some reason, the United States is running interference for Obama's JV team and welcoming them into the United States, welcoming them into America. Who agrees with me? Who thinks I'm wrong? You think, well, we got to take it to him. That's what Trump says. We got to take it to, we got to go in there. We got to go in there and destroy ISIS. No, you don't. If you really want ISIS to be destroyed, you would stop running interference for them and allow those countries to take over. Listen, I'm going to be hanging out in a little while with a general, all right, a retired general of a communist country. That's where I'm going to be in a little while. By the way, sweetheart, I haven't told you, but I'm going to be with the general again a little bit later at my favorite saloon. You're welcome to come by. I hope you do. And I'm going to hear more and more stories about this. And along with him, I have a Puerto Rican friend of mine, retired Navy, right? Retired Navy lieutenant commander. Puerto Rican from New York. He's American, but he's Puerto Rican. Let me tell you this guy. And he tells me all the time, listen, because, see, I was a captain in the Air Force, so he's my senior officer. So oftentimes I'll call him commander, and he'll call me captain, and we both call the general general. It kind of works like that in my circle. So commander here, Puerto Rican from New York, he tries to explain these things to me because he's so smart. He really is. I look up to him a lot. And he says, listen, it's like this. Where I come from, we speak the same language, okay? If there's a problem in my neighborhood, we wipe it out. But you white boys come in your uniforms and badges, right? And your shiny guns and your jails and your courts, and you come in and you don't understand who's the bad guy and who's the good guy, and you fobligate the whole thing up. Look up the word fobligate, by the way. See if you can find that word. It's a replacement F word is what it is. But he says, you guys come in, you don't speak the same language, and justice is not done. And he defines justice as getting exactly what you deserve. It's not done because you came in and got in the way. That is very similar to what the United States is doing with ISIS in the Middle East. White bread United States, right? We're in the way. Look, they speak the same language. Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Iran, Syria, Jordan, those countries threatened by ISIS and their ambitions to be the big dog or the caliphate of the Middle East, if we got out of the way, they would fix that problem. Who believes that? Or who thinks that that's crazy? I'll tell you what I think is crazy. I think it's crazy that the United States claims to be able to manage. Obama said this. Obama said the United States, just think about how crazy this is. He ran for office saying that the United States should not get involved in other countries. He said that the United States has been arrogant. And now that he's in charge, right? Now that he's the commander-in-chief, and he likes to tell us, right? As the commander-in-chief, I've never seen anything like it in my life. But as the commander-in-chief, he wants to manage and organize the Middle East and the Muslim world. That's what he said. Obama said he wants to manage the Middle East and organize the Muslim world. You don't think that that is, I don't know, slightly narcissistic? Are you crazy? He ran saying it was wrong. Democrats cheered, by the way. The nincompoop bobbleheads, boy. Yeah, woo. And then when he gets there, he wants to manage the 1.5 billion Muslims and the Arab world? That's what you get when you get a community organizer, by the way. That is insane, isn't it? And Democrats cheer. The same Democrats who thought it was wrong. The Peace Prize president doing this. This is not right. What I'm doing is I have a cough button by my feet. And I can't quite get my feet on the cough button, so I'm going to bend down and turn it around. Live radio, baby. You just go with it. That's one thing I've learned. If you try to be cool when you're live, you're going to end up a fool. That's my philosophy right there. I couldn't turn the damn thing over. I kept looking down trying to grab at it. It reminds me of a very funny skit from the Dean Martin variety show. He was there with Eddie Albert. Remember Eddie Albert from Green Acres? And on this scene from the Dean Martin variety show, they were going to milk cows. Dean had his own cow, and Eddie Albert had his own cow. And Eddie kept looking under the cow and reaching and looking under the cow, and Dean looked over his shoulder. He goes, "What are you doing there, Eddie?" And he says, My cow's missing one. On live TV, live radio, you just got to go with it, right? So Lois Lerner, how's that for a transition? You're talking about udders, and you go straight to Lois Lerner. To me, that's seamless. To other people, that might seem like a hard break. You know, one subject, Burnie, you can't go from there to there. Why not? I think it is a seamless transition from a cow with one too few udders to Lois Lerner with no scruples and no morals, villain of the people, which is what she was. Lois Lerner email revelation. It's not going to matter because what Obama has done in America is he has made what used to be bizarre normal, and he has convinced too many Americans that what used to be criminal is now just politics, baby. It's just politics. That's what Obama has done in America. Lois Lerner email revelation. IRS admits official behind the Tea Party targeting used second personal account. This administration is a criminal administration from top to bottom. You know it. I know it. If you're a Democrat, you know it. But you know what you say if you're a Democrat? By any means necessary, baby. Ha! That's what you say. Because Democrats, what? Say it with me. Democrats hate Republicans more than they love America. Am I right or wrong? Do you think Democrats hate Republicans more than they love America? You know they do. Democrats have made ISIS politically correct and Republican/Tea Party enemy of the people. Okay, I'll tell you what. Christy Brown wants to join us. I won't even take a break. I'll just keep going. But I need you, if you would please, let's let at S. Hannity's hair know that Christy Brown is here, because I'm sure he'll want to know. And let's let everybody else know that Christy Brown is going to join us, and she's going to join us right now. And let's get her on here. Hey, Christy, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing great. Glad to have you on. And you called at a perfect time, actually, because I've been boring myself, actually. So I'm good.
I don't believe that.
Well, Christy Brown, glad to have you. You know what I just did on Periscope, which is where the most fun place to be is on the show now. And by the way, we're also on YouTube live at My Freedom Radio channel. But I just told everybody to make sure that S. Hannity's hair knows that you're on, since he's evidently taken a liking to you lately. Did you notice that?
Yeah, I noticed that this morning.
Well, glad to have you. And one of the things I wanted to ask you about is, first of all, I mentioned earlier that what I love about you and your commentary, Christy Brown, is that you're not a partisan. You're not a Republican or a Democrat as much as you're a liberty champion, as much as you're trying to restore the Constitution, the supreme law of the land. And three people come to mind as the biggest champions when it comes to that, and that's Chris Ann Hall, her husband J.C. Hall, and you. I think really, I know some other strong conservatives and so on and so forth, but God bless you for what you do.
Well, thank you. That's an honor to be named with Chris Ann Hall and J.C. Hall. That's quite an honor.
Well, you absolutely deserve it. Now, you've been sort of ridiculing Donald Trump, and you've been puzzled as to why Republicans have embraced him with just, a hug, a bear hug, and a smile, man. They think Donald Trump is it. What do you think the appeal is with Donald Trump to Republicans?
Well, honestly, Burnie, I've had to ask other people because I personally do not get it at all. But what I have been told is that he comes across as strong, that he's going to bring nationalism back to America because they think that's a good thing, and that he is not going to he's not going to bow down to the other countries and to the Democrats and that kind of thing. That's the reason that I have been told that, and that he's not peace safe. Whatever that means these days. Those have been the reasons that I have been given, none of which qualify him to be president, but those are the reasons that I have been told.
Yeah, I like what you say about nationalism. What I think it is with Donald Trump, and I've thought this through, is I think that Donald Trump is appealing to the craving that Americans have for something that is not PC. I think they're craving a statesman And the only person they see that's willing to tell it it's sort of the same appeal that Chris Christie initially had. But Chris Christie, I warned everybody, was a big government prosecutor, and now people are seeing that in him. But the same is with Donald Trump. Donald Trump doesn't understand the limits of government at all. But I think that is the appeal. They want something that is not PC. Here's the way I view it. I think that Donald Trump is to Obama what Obama was to George W. Bush. So there was a gigantic pendulum swing from Bush to Obama. And now I think people want another pendulum swing from Obama all the way over to Trump. Instead, I think we should be looking for something more centered.
Well, that, and one of the things that I had a conversation on Facebook this morning about is that we already have a president that we elected based on his personality. And that's all that Trump is presenting. There's nothing in his policy. There is nothing that he is saying that is limited government, that is about freedom or liberty. None of that. It's everybody that likes him and every person that has responded to my "please explain this to me" request. It's because they like his personality. Yeah. My response to that is, we already have the president that got elected because of that, and I don't want another one.
No, exactly. I agree with you. I really do. I am glad that Trump is there because I think that he has shaken things up and he's made it more difficult for the Republicans just to sound off with their sound bites. He's sort of forcing people to talk about things again. But which candidates, if any, do you think would you vote for anyway?
I think we've talked before. I still like Rand Paul. I don't understand his campaign strategy at this point, but as far as his viewpoints and understanding where he stands on liberty and a limited government and defending the Constitution, I think he's probably the strongest. I like some of the stuff Ted Cruz has to say. I don't think I could vote for him. I don't believe he's constitutionally eligible to be running at all. But I like what he has to say. Carly Fiorina has really impressed me. I wish I agree with her policies a little bit more. I think that she hasn't thought through some of her stuff, but from a woman that is able to articulate very clearly what she believes and not get thrown regardless of who she's talking to, really like that about her. I think maybe if she got around the right people, she could be swayed to come a little bit more toward liberty versus some of her bigger government stances. Those are the ones that kind of made an impression on me so far. I hope Chris Christie kind of dug his own grave at the last debate in his back and forth with Rand, but we'll see about that one. That's pretty much it.
I agree. To me, if I had to vote today, it would be Rand Paul. And, here's something else. But mine would be Rand Paul or Ben Carson. And I think Ben Carson has a lot to learn about the limits of government and the Constitution. But I do think that he loves America. I do think he knows what works, or at least he asks the question what works. And I also think, and I hope, and I could be wrong, but I hope that he is willing to learn how government works the way that he learned how a body works. I do. I think that at least he's got that. And Ted Cruz, I would vote for, but as you said, and people don't seem to care about it, he's not eligible because he's not a natural-born citizen, and there is a difference between being an American citizen and a natural-born citizen. And if there's not, then why is the president the only job position in the Constitution that requires it?
Right. Well, and the other problem that I have with Ted Cruz is that he sounds good, just like Marco Rubio used to sound good. The problem is his record before he got to the Senate shows me that he isn't a defender of the Constitution. He says as a state attorney that's what he did, but he was prosecuting people for breaking laws the federal government had no business enforcing to begin with. So if I'm a serious contender, I would have some questions I would definitely want to get answered from him.
Yeah, and it's interesting, isn't it? Because he comes off as a constitutional candidate, but yet he supports federal laws that are not authorized by the Constitution.
Exactly.
That's crazy.
Well, and Donald, I don't know if you saw this today. I was watching his speech that he gave yesterday in Ohio, I think, where he got the crowd to boo Nabisco and to swear off ever eating Oreos again because they had the audacity to want to make money, and so they moved to Mexico. And instead of saying, he said, we're going to make America competitive again. That was his whole point of his speech, is make America competitive again. And then he went after these American companies. Instead of saying, we have the world's highest corporate tax rate, and in order to make us competitive again,
Right.
I will put an end to that, he went after these companies. And that is not the way a constitutional conservative deals with that issue. And it's like one thing after another. Like, he talks out of both sides of his mouth, and people don't care.
No, they don't care because they don't know. They don't understand the dangers of nationalism. They don't understand the dangers of economic protectionism. And when he talks about we're going to beat China in economics, we're going to beat China in trade, that is so insane. I mean, that is insane. For him, it's very much what Ross Perot did, though, and it's very much what Pat Buchanan always does. And if anybody believes that you're going to beat somebody that you're trading with, you don't understand at all what free trade is. Could you imagine if I said to you, I've got, Christy, if I called you and said, Christy, I've got a problem, I need your advice. I've got a terrible trade deficit with my grocer. My grocer's got so many dollars of mine, and I need to beat him. You're going to probably ask me if I'm okay, if I've been drinking. Secondly, you're going to say, did you get anything in return? I'll say, I got these steaks and this chicken and these eggs and this. And you're going to say, well, then, did anybody force anybody? I'll say, no, I bought them. And you'll say, well, I think it's a pretty even trade. You both won.
Right.
But guys, it's the same thing.
Yeah, I think that Donald Trump is as economically illiterate as Bernie Sanders seems to be, or they just know what's going to play well with the public they're speaking to. But either, shame on Americans for letting them get away with some of the stuff that they're saying, because it doesn't make any logical sense. I understand that Donald Trump at this point is appealing to emotions in the exact same way that Obama appealed to emotions on the left. He's appealing to emotions on the right. But the fact that we're falling prey to it again, that's shame on us. I mean, good for him that he's outsmarting most of Americans, but I wish that wasn't the case.
And here's the thing, too, I think. I think what the appeal of Bernie Sanders and the appeal of Donald Trump is showing us, because it's a signal, it signifies something. I think it signifies that Americans are anti-establishment right now, and they're looking for a candidate that's not the establishment candidate. And Hillary Clinton and Jeb Bush are as establishment as they could possibly be, right? And Donald Trump and Bernie Sanders are anti-establishment, but that's as far as they think. It's kind of like the term bipartisan. Bipartisanship in and of itself is not good or bad. It just is. It's not good or bad until we find out what it is that they were bipartisan about. And the same is true with anti-establishmentism. We can be anti-establishment, but that is neither good or bad until we figure out what it's about. And so far, it's not good.
Yeah, and I think, the reason why, on a personal level, that Donald Trump does not appeal to me is how he's dealing with simple things. Like the fact that last night he went on another tirade against Megyn Kelly on Twitter. He's running to be president of the United States, and this girl from Fox News, who I actually like, it should not be something that it bothers him at all. It should not be something that he should take the time with at all, and he should be able to answer the hard questions and not attack her because he's not able to. And that's really what makes some of this boil. So I hate presidential because I don't think we really know what that means anymore. But it's just not something that should be on the plate of somebody that's trying to make the case that they're worthy to run the country at this point,
or at least run the government, as I like to say, instead of run the country. But I agree with you. And that this is kind of another hallmark of America, though. I mean, Obama is the first president I know of who has waged a war against a major news network. I mean, we have seen presidents spar with commentators before. Look at Clinton and Limbaugh. But we have not really seen a president vilify a legitimate news outlet, and like Fox News. Right. And that is amazing that he's done that. And now here you have Trump sort of continuing this theater, and it is unpresidential. And, one of the themes of the show today has been
juvenile.
It is juvenile, right? And, I think that one of the things I lament in America is how inconsiderate we've become in public. our public decorum
Mm-hmm.
has become so inconsiderate and rude, and common courtesy has been a casualty in America. And I think that it's, there's an ancient Chinese bit of wisdom that says the more chaotic music becomes, it indicates the downfall of society. And I think the more chaotic our public decorum becomes indicates the downfall of society too.
Yeah, I really do think that the candidate that comes forward, whether it be in a national race or statewide race, that can begin to make the case for why they should earn your vote versus why the other guy shouldn't, I think that it's gonna cause waves across the country. I actually worked on a campaign in Georgia for Sonny Perdue, and that's what he did. He did a Sonny-do list instead of a honey-do list, and all of his ads were about what he was going to do, and he refused to attack the other candidate. He did it both times. His lieutenant governor actually ran against him, and he beat him soundly by just going, this is what I've done, and this is what I'm going to do, and this is my record, and this is who I am. And I think the other Republican candidates, specifically Rand Paul, who I adore, needs to start making the case for how they're different from Donald Trump and why they earn our vote and why they deserve it over Donald Trump versus just attacking Donald and Donald's followers, and actually begin to make the case. And I think it goes into that public decorum, because I think they're playing into it now. Jeb Bush responded today. Rand Paul has continued to respond. And I think the way that they can separate themselves is to bring that back into public space, begin to be polite and factual about what they believe and why they should deserve our vote and what they're going to do to earn it, instead of going after him.
Christy Brown, you're one of the smartest people I know. Do you know that? I don't mean to embarrass you.
Well, thank you.
I really don't. I just threw that out there because you are, and I love reading your commentaries. You're such a good writer, and you ask great questions. And again, I bring this up. When I give speeches, I like to talk about my favorite ancient Chinese proverbs. I only know 4 of them, but they're good ones. And one of them is the more beautiful answer to the more beautiful question. And I think that people who ask good questions come up with the best answers and the best ideas, and you're one of them. And so I have a question about this. Matt Gaetz. Matt Gaetz, as you know, is a state representative, a younger guy in his mid-30s here in Florida. His dad, Don Corleone Gaetz, Don Gaetz was the president of the Senate, and he's term limiting out. So Matt Gaetz, the son, wants his dad's Senate seat, and he's running for. He's already raised $500,000 or more. I'm sorry, yeah, $500,000 or more for that seat. But here's my question for you: Matt Gaetz has a record of being fairly conservative. I mean, if compared to the rest, right? He can say I'm pretty conservative. I voted pretty conservative, right? And he's voted against amnesty, and he's voted against Common Core. But he is endorsing Jeb Bush. So here's my question to you. Can you be a good conservative while simultaneously voting as a conservative but endorsing Jeb friggin' Bush? Is that possible?
This is a tough one for me, because I believe that, for example, like we've talked about Rand Paul, I believe is a conservative, and he endorsed Romney, and I would put Romney and Jeb Bush kind of on the same plane together. I think sometimes people decide it's a deliberate choice to play the establishment game instead of standing on your own 2 feet, making your own decision for what you believe and what you're supposed to be representing. You decide to play their game. So do I think somebody can be conservative in their own beliefs and vote conservatively and still make the mistake of endorsing basically a progressive? Yes, I do think that's possible. I think it's something that needs to stop, and I want to see conservatives actually, put an end to some of these games that they play. But I think it's possible, and I also think it's confusing. I think he may be challenged the next time around because he endorsed Jeb, and he is not, in line with most conservatives' belief system, and it might hurt his campaign in the end. But I guess we'll see. It's very confusing.
It is confusing for sure, but it also zeroes him out. What if his endorsement were to make a difference? Then everything he's fought for, everything he's voted for, goes out the window. I mean, exactly. I couldn't imagine doing it. To me, it feels dirty. It feels like I would feel like I'm whoring myself out if I did that, Christy.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons when I speak about a candidate, it's only for a candidate that I'm going to vote for. I will never put and I'm not in public office, and I think this should apply even more to them. I'm not going to put my name next to a candidate that I do not fully believe is going to govern the way that I believe the Constitution says that they should. And if somebody else is willing to put their name next to Jeb Bush, I would definitely question their conservative credentials the next time around.
Mm-hmm. What do you? I've been saying this too. I want to get your thought on this before you head out of here. I've been thinking about ISIS, okay, and Trump's been talking about that stuff too, right? With his nationalism and America's going to be number one and we're going to beat ISIS and all this stuff. We're going to beat China. We're going to beat ISIS. Okay. Here's my thought. Number one, we don't need to beat China. We just need to trade with them. Number two, we're not going to beat ISIS. We're running interference for them as far as I'm concerned. ISIS wants to be, or Obama's ISILs as I call them, they want to be the big dog in the Middle East. They want to be the caliphate. That what stands in their way is Syria, Iran, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Jordan. Don't you think that if we stopped running interference for them and chasing them around, and if we pulled back, if ISIS threatened those Arab states, don't you think they would decimate ISIS?
Yeah, I mean, I think we saw just a piece of that after Jordan's pilots got killed. I mean, Jordan did more damage to ISIS in a day than we had done in a few months at that point. I think it's the same situation as it's continued to be in the Middle East, which is we tell people to stop when the ISIS or whatever, Hamas or whatever is a direct threat to that country, that we're saying, no, we've got this. And what we end up doing is making things worse. Mm-hmm. And it's a cycle that we continue to repeat over and over again. And people like Donald Trump are getting people to cheer that we're going to go in and make the exact same mistake again. We're going to do the recruiting for ISIS because of the way that we're interfering over there right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's if I were the commander-in-chief, I would pull our troops back. I understand that it's going to be bloody, but it's going to be bloody anyway. And I think we're extending it. They are a direct, at least they claim to be, a direct threat to those nation states. And I think those nation states speak the same language as they do. They're not encumbered with the same rules of engagement that don't allow us to defeat them. They will decimate them. Because they speak the same language.
And we are fighting a first generation, maybe second generation war with fourth and fifth generation weapons. We're spending millions of dollars. I think it was like $1.6 million on a tank that the ISIS is blowing up with a $10 IED, and that's not ever going to win. All it's going to do is leave more and more debt to our children, cost more and more American lives, where if they can get on the same, like you said, they speak the same language, They also know how to fight them. They know where they're coming from. They know where their hiding places are. They think the same way, and we don't. I think that's probably been our biggest disadvantage being involved in the Middle East has been, we fight a war the way that we would expect to be fought, and that's not what's happening, and it's cost us trillions of dollars to figure out that we're not going to win it that way.
Exactly. Americans have done that. This one thing that we do as Americans is we project our values and our understanding on other cultures. We think that other cultures think the way we think. And it's amazing that we do that. It's one of the worst things because here's another one of my favorite ancient. I can't believe I've been able to go through these with you. Another one of my ancient Chinese proverbs is, it says, wisdom begins by calling things by their proper name. And wisdom also begins by understanding the situation, right? If you don't diagnose the illness, you can't prescribe the right medicine. And it's similar to that. We are not diagnosing that problem correctly. And I quite frankly think it's on purpose by design.
I think so as well. The one thing that I do say to conservatives that want to go to war with ISIS is, okay, then for once, go to your Congress, have them declare war so that somebody is accountable. At the end of the day, somebody has to come up with a plan, and they have to make the case for why they are a direct and imminent threat to American lives, not American interests. That drives me crazy. But they actually need to follow the Constitution. And what drives me nuts with conservatives is that they invoke the Constitution when they want to talk about Obamacare, but they pretend like it's not there when they want to go bomb a country.
That is so true. That is so true. I think of it as this. Republicans love to do this. This is one of their favorite things. If they were in The Sound of Music, that musical, this would be one of their favorite things. They love to take the Constitution and roll it up as a truncheon to bludgeon liberals with it and say, you've got to follow the Constitution. But they ignore parts of it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Christy Brown, thanks for being with us. No, what were your final thoughts on that?
I was just going to say that needs to be the compass that people choose who deserves their vote. You know, when it comes to the Republican candidates and the 40,000 people that are running for president right now, I think that needs to be the measuring stick, is who's going to take their oath to the Constitution seriously, and who has thus far, the people who have been in office, who have taken it seriously. And it doesn't need to be who gives the best speeches and who gets you most emotionally charged, but who's going to actually do their job as president. And their job is to uphold their oath to the Constitution.
Exactly. And Christy Brown, can I ask you one last question about the stock market and just about the economy? I mean, it's my belief that the stock market, first of all, a couple thoughts on this with fears in the market and stuff. Number one, I find it ridiculous that Democrats now point to the stock market as their proof that the economy is doing great. Democrats used to always point to like minority unemployment, right? Now they ignore that and they say, look at the stock market, it's doing great. That must mean that that's amazing that they can do that. And then when you look at the stock market, who actually believes that the stock market accurately reflects the value of those companies right now?
Yeah, I mean, it appears like a lot of people do, but I think, like we said earlier in this conversation, that Americans in general are economically illiterate. I mean, I was talking to somebody earlier today that was telling me about where they're going to go on vacation based on the dollar being so valuable now, and I just kind of looked at him like, you do understand that the more money that they print, the less value your dollar is going to have. And he was like, well, no, that's what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to print money. And I think the same thing happens with the stock market. I think the futures are way down because those people actually understand economics for the most part.
Yeah.
But then the rest of the country determines, the value of a company, and it has nothing to do with the actual value of the company.
Yeah.
It's so manipulative that it's hard to actually untwist it all and figure out exactly what pieces go where.
I'll tell you, this is how I look at it. I think that inflating the money supply is like taking aspirin for gangrene to stop the throbbing. I mean,
Yes.
It's not really a good long-term plan.
But traveling with Ron Paul and that campaign, that was one of the things that was refreshing, is how many people understood economics. And the reason they liked Ron Paul is because he actually understood economics. And I was helping somebody with Facebook ads the other day, and I had Austrian economics as one of the interests of people I wanted to target. And he asked me what Austrian economics was. Now, this was a previous economics professor who was asking me what Austrian economics was. Yes. And I said, well, I pointed him to one of Ron's books, and he came back to me today, and he goes, Austrian economics will never work in the U.S. He said, we have to have the boom and bust cycles because it's what actually creates a booming economy.
Listen, this is it. This is the amazing thing, because he clearly is a Keynesian, right, economist. And the way the Keynesians look at an economy is as though it's a machine. They think that they can create something. They look at it from that perspective, like they can push the right buttons and pull the right levers, and they can make something fit. The way the Austrian economic school looks at things is what happens, right? It's more organic versus mechanical. They take into account that you cannot really create an economy because an economy is the result of what people do. And so it's not that it wouldn't work in America. It's just a way of explaining what happened.
Well, and it's without government interference. People that are pro, Austrian economics believe that, in a free market. And most people think that America is a free market. And I just laugh when people say that, because I think the stock market is a representation of what happens when government and corporations are in bed with each other. Because we're not in a free market, corporations are able to pay the government off, either look the other way so that regulations don't apply to them, or to not apply regulations to them, and then everybody else that's not that company ends up getting hurt. And that's the opposite of a free market. A free market is the marketplace decides what value that company has based on who they decide to buy their services or products from. Not the government deciding, and that makes a big difference when those regulations are, you can pay off the EPA or you can pay off the FDA so that you can get your product or service out there, and the company around the corner can't afford to do that. Well, now you're limiting consumer choice, and the market is no longer making that decision. The government is.
Exactly, and it's cronyism. When you have big corporations and big government, as you said, climbing in bed with each other, what you're going to do is spawn bastard lobbyists. That's the first thing that's going to happen, right? You're going to spawn bastard lobbyists at our expense. And I've been saying over and over that cronyism is the modern-day bubonic plague. It's killing us, and it's infectious, and it's deadly, and it inflicts Republicans and Democrats alike. It's terrible.
Well, and it's something that the only thing that can end it is for people to begin to understand that more regulation and more government involvement is not going to make it better. They created the problem in the first place.
Exactly. Well, S. Hannity's Hair has been on with us on Periscope for a while, and I highly recommend Christy Brown that when you get a chance later on and you kick your feet up and grab yourself a martini or something, watch the interview, and S. Hannity's Hair just said, "What's up, girl?" to you, and Miss Sarah Moon is trying to keep him in line. So I want you to know some of us can handle you in a professional manner. I just want you to know that, Christy Brown.
I know that, Burnie, and I appreciate Sarah coming to my defense.
Well, S. Hannity's Hair wanted me to get your number, and would you just act right? I gotta get on with this. Christy Brown, thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right, Christy Brown. You can find her on Twitter at KRISTI, Christy Renee Brown, and also on Facebook at KRSTI Brown. I did the best I could for you, S. Hannity's Hair. Now, the sand is rapidly running through the hourglass, which I guess I should be grateful for. I want to tell you what I'm going to go do, and I'm excited about it. And I'm going to take good notes so that I can share these stories with you. I am going to, in about an hour or two, go spend some time with a retired general from a communist country. He's here, and I'm about to go listen to some more of his stories. And it's amazing, and it's also frightening, honestly, to take a listen to his stories. But I figure it's a great opportunity to maybe lift my gaze. And GAZE, lift my gaze, and see if I can learn a thing or two and share it with you tomorrow, right here again on myfreedomradio.com, myfreedomradio.com. And today's show was on YouTube. So if you haven't yet gone to YouTube, will you do me a favor? We're trying to get more people to subscribe, and we're trying to become more consistent on YouTube. The YouTube video is awesome. If you have it, it's got a wider view. You can see the rest of the studio on YouTube. If you go to YouTube and you look for the channel My Freedom Radio, one word, My Freedom Radio, and then hit subscribe. And I think it makes that noise. Right there, if you'll hit that, I need it. So please link arms with me on YouTube at My Freedom Radio, and I'll see you tomorrow right here and on Periscope. And thank all of you for being with us, especially on Periscope. I have so much fun with this new app, and I hope that you'll get another couple of people to download the free app and follow us and link arms with us so we can get closer to that 30 million mark that I have. Because I think when we get 30 million of us linking arms, I think the ground will rumble, and I think everything will be okay. Thanks so much. I'll see you tomorrow right here.
Thompson Show. Stay tuned. More of you and Burnie straight ahead.
The Burnie Thompson Show is brought to you by Gulf Imaging. Have your doctor refer you to the #1 diagnostic facility in Bay County for MRIs, CAT scans, and digital mammography. GulfImagingOpenMRI.com.